Springfield's Talk 1041. Hello and welcome to the show, everyone. My name is Nick Reed. We are streaming live, KSGF.com, and we got a big show to unfold. Any of it you miss, which it does happen, don't worry. Don't feel guilty. Don't feel like you'll be missing out. We've got the podcast section on the app at KSGF.com, also Spotify, iTunes, and I know that some of you grab it from other places as well, and that is perfectly fine. You do whatever makes you feel most comfortable. Now, tomorrow we do have a Heroes Breakfast. That will be at, today is Thursday, right? Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, just had to make sure.
Yep. You are correct.
Yes, I am correct. So tomorrow, Friday, Heroes Breakfast. If you're a veteran, come by Scramblers. Scramblers teams up every so often, about once a month or so, with some of our other partners, Delta Roofing, Air Services, Heating, Cooling, Plumbing, Electrical, and the incredible folks at the Warrior's Journey, and do a free breakfast for veterans. So if you come out as a veteran, you're going to get that breakfast tomorrow, and that is from 6A to 9A. Today, we'll have Christy Fulnecki joining us in the 7 o'clock hour. The 8 o'clock hour, we are actually going to rerun a past author of the week, and for a couple of different reasons. One, frankly, timing of this works out pretty well, actually. The author that we had scheduled just isn't going to happen. But that allows us to replay an author from over a year ago writing a book called D-Trans. And this is purposeful, given the shooting that took place yesterday and the conversation about the transgenders and this push, this coaxing of young people, convincing them that what is wrong with them isn't mental. They're perfectly fine. They're just in the wrong body. And so cosmetic surgery to irreversibly change your body is going to be the thing you need. And if you don't do it, you're going to kill yourselves. And then, of course, we're just shocked whenever that doesn't work. And in fact, it pushes people over the edge. And this book, D-Trans, focuses on victims and the cases of all these victims that as young people were convinced by people they were told to trust, whether it's counselors, educators, doctors. They trusted them and believed that if they did not get sex change operations as young people, then they would kill themselves. And fortunately, these are survivors. Individuals that did not end up committing suicide, as so oftentimes those who go through the surgeries do, or we're increasingly seeing them act out in other ways, mass shootings, and these are survivors. And so it's very important and significant insight. These are victims, and these are the people that the media, they do not want you to know about, because they have a very specific narrative, and that is sex change operations for kids is a wonderful thing. It is the only solution to help young people who are trapped in the wrong bodies. And when these victims, these survivors come out of it and begin speaking about the manipulation that was used in order to coax them into this and the massive amount of damage it's done, that truth runs counter to the narrative out there, this political push. And so they silence them. They refuse to cover them. And this is just a very, very important thing for people to understand. So we're going to have that interview in the 8 o'clock hour as part of our Author of the Week, sponsored by ABC Books on North Glenstone. Now, we're going to hit on just a lot of the information about the shooting that took place yesterday, much of which we already know. And unfortunately, what has, platforms like this are the platforms where we look at what happened, the truth about what happened, and then the way it's being portrayed to the American people and to the world. Unfortunately, the people who don't know any better. One of the areas of great criticism, just based off what we know right now, is that the mother, when her son was 17 years old, still a minor, filed to have his name changed and requesting that he be referred to as a female, and was participating in this delusion. And there are parents that do get in on it because it's a fad, it's cool. It's like, remember that period of time where the big thing was for rich celebrities to adopt black kids from, these third world countries, and that was just like it was a status symbol almost. And there are some parents that are like that. Generally, I find that those are the parents of the really, really young kids that have no idea whatsoever about any of this stuff. And when you have parents declaring, "Well, my 6-month-old already knows," that is a parent that is delusional. That is a parent that is trying to be part of what they think is the cool culture. But whenever you have a preteen or a teen that, as a parent, you are watching change from this, 10-year-old kid that would come home and run through the door and hug you and "I love you, mommy," and, traipsing around the house following you, and just over a few years period of time becomes quiet and isolated and depressed. And then you get some counselor telling you, "Well, your child is transgender and you can either have a living son or a dead daughter, or vice versa. If you don't allow this to occur, if you don't not just allow this to occur, but support this, then you are going to be responsible for your child killing yourself." That sort of psychological warfare on a parent that is desperate to save their child can take an otherwise completely normal, caring parent and turn them into an accomplice, unwilling and unknowing accomplice of this horrific movement. And so I'm always very, I just, the simple knowledge that the parent of a teenager or a preteen participated in the delusion, to me, does not tell us whether they were a willing participant or a participant based off the fear that if they did not participate, their child would be murdered or would kill themselves. Because honestly, to me, that's like a parent whose child is kidnapped and you're told, "If you don't go rob this bank, we're going to murder your child." And then the parent robs the bank because they're so desperate, they'll do anything to save their child. And that doesn't make them a bad person. It makes them someone who believes that their child is actually going to be murdered. And when you have specialists and doctors and counselors and psychologists all telling you that your child's going to kill yourself if you don't support this, I get it. I mean, thank God that's not a situation I've ever been in. And I firmly believe, just based off the path that the girl child is on, it's not something I'm going to have to deal with, though, things happen in life. I can't imagine being in that particular situation. So I reserve judgment when it comes to those particular parents. Again, like I said, that's a lot different than somebody who's declaring their 2-year-old is a transgender. That's just a psycho. We've got weather coming up in a moment. Right now, the latest news update.
The first alert forecast from Ozarks First meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by St. Clair of the Ozarks Home Improvements. Today we'll see a 70% chance of showers throughout the morning and then cloudy skies with a high near 70. Tonight partly cloudy with a low around 58. For your Friday, mostly sunny with a high near 81. And taking a look at Saturday, sunny skies with a high near 86.
Okay. For some of what we do know, the transgender Minneapolis shooter, Robin Westman, spoke of murdering filthy Zionist Jews and spewed other anti-Semitic bile in a twisted manifesto before he opened fire at the Catholic school Wednesday morning, killing 2 children. Now, just the headline here is virtually everything that this person posted are talking points of left-wing activists. There's no denying it. A lot of anti-Semitism, a lot of, of course, kill Donald Trump, that sort of thing. And this is become very commonplace amongst so many of these psychopaths, whether it's somebody trying to kill Trump himself or some sort of mass shooter, that they have left-wing rantings. Westman, 23, also wrote slogans such as Free Palestine. What a shock. Can you imagine the media? If consistently there were mass shooters or individuals trying to kill Democrats like Joe Biden, Kamala Harris, or mass shooters that were using the word-for-word slogans of Donald Trump or MAGA Americans or Republicans. I can't even begin to imagine that world. The media and the Democrats would pound away at it so drastically, the Republican Party would probably dissolve itself. So one of the slogans that the shooter had had written was Free Palestine in a journal. After YouTube clips, this is in the New York Post, by the way, and he'd written it in Cyrillic alphabet, which the Post had translated, after YouTube clips showing the diary pages were posted online on his since-deleted channel. He wrote in one entry, "If I will carry out a racially motivated attack, it will most likely be against filthy Zionist Jews. I hate those entitled penny-sniffing," and then the Jewish slur. He wrote elsewhere in the journal, which was full of anti-Semitic slurs. He also wrote 6 million wasn't enough, a reference to the number of Jewish Holocaust victims, on the side of ammunition magazines that he filmed before the shooting at the Catholic school and church in Minneapolis that also left 17 people wounded. Another message scrawled on one of his mini magazines read, "Destroy HIAS, the Jewish Refugee Aid Group," while one of his guns read, "Israel must fail, release the files," a possible reference to the constant call of releasing the files by Democrats. The deranged gunman mused about assassinating President Donald Trump and Jews, but ultimately decided that killing, quote, children of innocent civilians would bring him the most joy, the translated journal entry read. He also wrote, "For good work, or for good would be a target or political or societal significance. Targets like Musk, Trump, or some significant executive," which, again, executives with the top executive of that, was it United Health, the healthcare company, and the left celebrating in many corners the assassination of that executive. So that is also a common theme amongst leftist activists. He also wrote, as he deliberated a motive for the shooting, "I can't really put my finger on a specific purpose. I definitely won't be for racism, or it definitely won't be for racism or white supremacy." So he's making it clear he's, not one of those crazy right-wingers. I think it's interesting that he notes in his writings that he can't put his finger on a specific motivation, but he mulls through all of the possible motivations, and they're all left-wing talking points. He also noted, "While I don't really like being around people of color, I don't give enough of a blank about them to take my life for them," he wrote in other parts of the journal. Westman, whose records say changed his name from Robert to Robin in 2020 after applying when he was 17, and he had been suicidal for several years but wanted to take others with him. "I don't want to do it to spread a message. I do it to please myself. I do it because I'm sick. I don't think I could just take myself out. I would need to do something with my final act. Now, if you want to really get into this deep, and this is an individual who, according to his writings, was looking for a reason to do it. He said, I don't think that I could just take myself out. I would need to do something with my final act. So in what limited writings had been translated by the New York Post, again, these were translated, he had it in the Cyrillic writing and the postings that were available for a short period of time on social media. And the New York Post had them translated. So there's, I'm sure, a great deal of other writings as well. But based off of those writings, he's stating that unless he had a reason, he couldn't bring himself to carry out this sort of act. And so he's mulling through the different possible reasons that he could utilize as justification, and they're Democrat talking points. Now, this is, people may find me revealing that information or presenting that information as horrible and finger-pointing. I'm just relaying what it is that he did and what he wrote and what he said in his writings. I suspect probably not, outside of the New York Post and other programs that are insistent on providing factual information. You're not going to hear a lot about this from the mainstream media. In fact, as usual, the town hall actually has a piece, the media's aversion to discuss this about the Minneapolis shooters, why they're mocked. And it was, if you can understand how it is people who have their favorite news channel, and if it's a network news channel, they are clueless about what goes on in the world. I think a lot of normal, informed Americans shake their heads and think, how can people be so clueless? You watch the coverage of something like this on, CNN or MSNBC or some of the major networks, and you can understand how it is that people walk through this world totally and completely clueless about what goes on. Some of it is somewhat subtle. For example, while it was being discussed on ABC, they have sort of their experts on, like, oh, what's the latest information we have? And one of their reporters was pouring through a lot of the different messages that he had, and he referenced the fact that, that the killer even refers to the name of Donald Trump. Now, what he doesn't mention, that being the ABC reporter, is that the mentioning of the name of Donald Trump was in the context of killing him. Which is a very deliberate omission. It is something that if you are an audience member of ABC and you see that particular report, you don't, the way that they report it, well, this guy's just here, he's talking about Trump. And if you already are predisposed to hate Donald Trump, you're going to infer from that, well, this guy must like Trump or listen to Trump or something about Trump. So in that particular report on ABC News, they specifically omitted the fact that it was a call to kill Trump. MSNBC, a real in-depth discussion. What might have caused this? What could have radicalized him? Clearly he's radicalized. They list potentially bad parenting, the effects of COVID, went on and on about video games. We're still clinging to that one. I mean, I'm not saying that in the entire mix of issues and problems that can have influence over young people, video games can't play a part. But it's like, this is such an oldie but goodie, all sitting around playing video games all day. But of course, no mention whatsoever of the fact that increasingly we are seeing individuals that when they're young and convinced that their psychological issues are because they are in the wrong body and they have to have surgery, they have to have sex change operations. None of that is mentioned as a possible radicalized motive. At the time, everyone was talking about the journal writings and how he posted he hates Christians and everything. You have the police chief of Minneapolis declaring they don't have any sort of motive. They have no idea. No word on a motive. On CNN, John Miller mentioning the video and notes left behind by the shooter, citing the mental illness. And the working motive is that he's in pain, but nothing about the specifics. So it's all just very vague, painting over it. And they have to be that way, of course, because this is yet again a pattern of an individual that has carried out a horrific act, and in their writings, use Democrat talking points, which is why they can't really go into too much detail and instead just use the broad brush of guns and mental health. Guns and mental health, guns and mental health. Then you have, of course, this gem. This is, pull this up here, CNN. It's just amazing how either ignorant or dishonest these people are. This is one of the experts on CNN discussing this, specifically the use of semi-automatic firearms.
A semi-automatic rifle, and it went on for several minutes.
Right, and that's not uncommon as well. These things can shoot dozens of bullets, in just one trigger pull, right?
This too has become almost commonplace. When there is some sort of shooting, you have these people that are supposed to be providers of information to an audience, to the American people, to perhaps the world, claiming that essentially that semi-automatic weapons operate as automatic weapons, where you just pull the trigger and it continuously fires, as opposed to what a semi-automatic weapon does. You pull the trigger, it fires, pull the trigger, it fires, pull the trigger, it fires. Now, given that it's mainstream media, it is either one of two things: deliberate dishonesty and lying, or they're, again, putting people up that we're supposed to listen to as knowledgeable individuals that are so completely ignorant about what it is that they're talking about that they go on national television and make these most absurd claims about firearms. And frankly, I don't know which one it is. I think, in all likelihood, it's a flip of a coin. Because it is amazing how little knowledge these networks expect their faces, their providers that will go on camera and talk to the American people. It is amazing how little knowledge they actually expect them to have about what it is they're talking about. That is irrelevant. Now, some of the Democrat reaction to this, which is pretty standard and frankly disgusting, the mayor almost mocking the children for praying while they were shot. Some of these people are deplorably despicable. That coming up. The Pyramid Roofing Company text line 447 KSGF. I'm Nick Reed. I want a great homeloan.com. Any home loan need yet you may have. These are your folks. I recommend them. You can read reviews online. Alex, Anthony Carricker, their team, extremely knowledgeable, and they're kind of weird in the sense that not only do they actually love what they do, but they love sharing that information and helping people. They understand that they have because this is what they do, and they do it all the time, and they get paid to do it. So that gives them the availability to have such a deep level of knowledge that the average person doesn't. But taking people who oftentimes have been told, we can't help you. It's going to be too difficult. A few weeks ago, I believe it was Anthony, it was one of the two characters, relayed a story about someone who came to them because they had been just completely dropped by their traditional place that they would go and told there's nothing we can do for you. Oftentimes that happens because you'll have a financial institution. They have one person that is able to handle home loans and refinancing, and then they leave and go away, and you're left high and dry. And so what had been a long, ongoing, frustrating process, I think he said within 2 weeks, they got it done, underway, and closed. This is what you get when you utilize the characters in their team for your refinancing, your home loans, and your reverse mortgages that I want. agreathomeloan.com, because you do. Now, we're going to have a traffic update, and then some of the just deplorable comments by, among others, the mayor of Minneapolis, seemingly mocking the kids for praying while they were shot. And some of the comments that are made by Jen Psaki, also on MSNBC, it's clear, and frankly, I think it's a little sad. They don't understand why people of faith pray. They really genuinely do not understand, and I don't think that they care either. They instead like to use prayer as a weapon to mock people of faith, specifically Christians, and we saw that on display yesterday. Traffic now, I'm Nick Reed.
Springfield's Talk 1041, the first alert forecast from Ozarks First meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by J&S Automotive. Today we'll see a 70% chance of showers throughout the morning and then cloudy skies with a high near 70. Tonight, partly cloudy with a low around 58. For your Friday, mostly sunny with a high near 81. And taking a look at Saturday, sunny skies with a high near 86.
Let's see. I want to mention here that today there is a new keyword, your opportunity to win tickets to Because You're Mine, the music of June Carter and Johnny Cash at the Atos Center. It's a hybrid of entertainment, if you will. It's not simply a concert, though there are 23 hit songs that are performed, but it also is a weaving together of like sketches and specific concert moments and different stories. And so it's sort of an all immersive live event. It's supposed to be really incredible. And that performance is September 7th, 6 p.m. You can buy tickets, of course, at the Atos Center, or if you'd like to take a shot at winning a pair, you can do so by texting the word BLACK to the Pyramid Roofing Company text line at 417-447 KSGF. That is the word BLACK, BLACK. And there you have it. So good luck, everyone. Good luck. You know, the left loves to virtue signal by talking about how, in their minds, people on the right, they fear what they don't know. They mock what they don't know. They're just ignorant about certain things. It becomes very clear that people on the left don't understand why specifically Christians pray. They believe, and listen, this some of you listening right now, there may be people that aren't on the left that also don't know why Christians pray, because they're not Christians. You're not Christians. And so that doesn't mean you're a lefty simply because you don't know. You may think the same thing that people on the left do, and that is that it's always just asking for something to happen. That is the sole purpose for prayer. Asking, like, and not to trivialize it, but this is how they view it in their minds. It's no different than a kid visiting Santa at the mall before Christmas to ask for things for Christmas. This is what I want. I want a wagon. I want a PS5 or whatever. And so when Christians want something, that's when they pray. Now, that isn't to say, of course, that while in prayer, Christians don't make prayer requests. That's done all the time. In fact, a lot of churches have prayer requests. Generally, it is for the health and safety of other people. It is out of compassion. It's not for material things. Though, hey, listen, somebody's getting ready to be evicted out of their apartment or lose their home, lost a job. And so I think it's reasonable oftentimes people, just for the safety and security of their family, financially speaking, will pray, please, show me some sort of answer here. So it isn't that Christians don't utilize prayer in order to talk to God and request, if it is his will, to have a certain earthly thing occur. But it also is oftentimes for comfort. And not even for ourselves, but comfort for others, selflessly. Whenever people who are Christian, and I guess I can't speak for every Christian, so I'll just say as myself, and if I, am thinking, all right, thoughts and prayers. You hear that a lot, praying for. When I'm, as a Christian, praying for people involved in the shooting as it was yesterday, it isn't that's not a step I'm taking in order to try and make sure this doesn't happen again. That may be, of course, part of my wishes and desires, but it's for comfort for the families. It's that they, particularly families, that if it's in a church, there is the hope that there is some comfort for them and prayer to God that you speak to them and give them the comfort of knowing that while their child needlessly was taken away from them here, that they are in a wonderful place in God's arms. And so it's the sort of relationship, frankly, that you have with somebody that you love and care about. Somebody that you reach out to here on earth when, maybe you need a favor. And so you call them up and ask them for one. Or maybe it's just because you need to hear their voice because you're sad and you need some words of encouragement. That is... there's just a number of different reasons that Christians pray. But you can tell by almost the mockery, by people on the left, in their minds, it's just a wish list like a kid at Christmas. You had yesterday the Minneapolis mayor, Jacob Frey, and he's a Democrat, saying, don't just say this is about thoughts and prayers. These kids were literally praying. What is that even supposed to mean? I mean, here he clearly is putting prayer in the context of worthlessness and then attaching the kids to that, almost like those idiot kids. Look what good it did them. What a sick perspective. I understand out of ignorance people who don't understand the purpose of prayer, thinking, I don't know why, there needs to be more than thoughts and prayers. Pray, you know what? That just isn't enough. And that's silliness, and that should. But then to point to the kids, and be like, well, that's what they were doing. A lot of good it did them. What sort of sicko freak is this guy? And in his mind, he's being compassionate. Incidentally, it should also be noted that simply because a person prays for the victims and their families, that doesn't mean that they then just say, well, that's all there is to do. That's the other context that the left puts prayers in. They act as if people who are offering up prayers for comfort and solace and answers, that they're just like, well, golly gee whiz, I'm just a hillbilly who prays and does nothing else at all. I don't think that there's any solutions other than that. God will just take care of it all, and if he wants more kids shots, so be it. That's in their minds, that's what Christians do, which is why they lash out and say, enough with prayers, we need more than that. Well, no one who prays says that's all that needs to be done. Jen Psaki, prayer is not freaking enough. Prayer does not end school shootings. Prayer does not make parents feel safe sending their kids to school. Prayer does not bring these kids back. Enough with the thoughts and prayers. Well, if you want to be realistic about this, you can't prove that prayer doesn't make parents feel better, doesn't give prayer or parents comfort. It may not for some, but I suspect it does for some. But I tell you what really doesn't help is more gun control laws. That clearly doesn't help. So if you're going to mock prayer as being completely useless, you probably ought to stop calling for gun control laws that have proven over and over and over again they don't stop people from killing. Of the two, I'd say prayer has a much better track record. But again, I'm just some anti-science Christian that believes Jesus is magic. Now, the other, and it's just a matter of priorities. After the break, what appears to be the driving concern of some of these individuals, including the mayor of Minneapolis, the transgender community. Oh, well, clearly. Springfield's Talk 104.1, I'm Nick Reed. Minneapolis Mayor Jacob Frey preached about trans rights during a presser on the mass shooting. Now, this is yet again another targeted specifically Catholics in this particular case. Now, his mother did work there, according to some of the reports. But don't you find it interesting that in the previous administration, the Catholic Church, Catholics were seen and viewed and treated as potential terrorists, potential domestic terrorists, to the point that the Biden administration had the FBI trying to, through infiltration, get people within the Catholic Church to act as spies for the government. And then after, in that context, you have a couple of these left-wingers target Catholic institutions. Now, there's never any mention of that. No. And I'm not even arguing that there is a connection to it, but the media never even mulls over that. No, instead, they're worried about the people turning on transgenders, because they, of course, are the great defenders of the trans community. Now, first off, there has been, most people, including you perhaps, aren't aware of how many attempted and or successful mass shootings there have been in the last few years from young trans individuals. Back in 2018, I'm just pull a few here for your knowledge. A trans-identifying female shooter named Snochia Mosley walked into a pharmaceuticals distribution center in the Baltimore suburb of Aberdeen, shot 3 people fatally, then shot herself in the head. Now, by the way, as I'm reading it as it's written, I don't know if that means this was actually a woman or identified as a woman, because you know how these stories go. According to a friend of the killer, Mosley had suffered from bipolar disorder and depression linked to feelings of rejection when Mosley had first come out as gay and later as transgender. It's a transgender mass shooter. Her friend went on to note that the killer had begun receiving hormone therapy a year prior to the incident and planned to undergo sex change operation. In May of 2019, Maya Alec McKinney, female student who asked to be referred to as a male, as she was transitioning at the time of the shooting, entered a STEM academy she was attending in Highlands Ranch, a suburb of Denver, opened fire on several groups of students. One Highlands Ranch STEM school student was killed on the spot. An additional 8 were injured seriously enough to require hospitalization and treatment. 2 years later, also in Colorado, a state with a disturbing history of mass shootings, tracing back to at least Columbine shooting in 1999, which, of course, is amazing for a blue state run by Democrats. Anderson Lee Aldrich entered an LGBT nightclub, began firing his semi-automatic weapon, leaving 5 dead, almost 20 injured. While some commentators argued that this could be disingenuous, Aldrich almost immediately described himself as non-binary, and his lawyer insisted in court that he should also be referred to as such. March 27, 2023. The one that more people are more familiar with because it just happened to be more high profile. That is when the 28-year-old Audrey Aiden Hale entered the Christian school in Tennessee, shot 3 young children, a teacher, and a custodian in the head of the school. January of 2024, 17-year-old Dylan Butler, Des Moines suburb of Perry, fatally shot a 6th grader, wounded 5 others before killing himself. Screenshots from his social media account displayed, LGBTQ symbolism, had, love your trans kids, and so forth. Genesee Yvonne Morena, 36, was with her 7-year-old son, who was critically injured in a Houston shootout. Investigators say that the shooter had Palestine written on the butt of her rifle, again, left-wing rhetoric, and she had uncovered, they uncovered anti-Semitic writings, again, big shock. She previously went by several other allies, including Jeffrey Escalante, and is variously listed as male and female in official records. So that is just a listing of some, many of which you probably didn't even know about. Because, of course, what occurs is when these mass shootings occur, if it is discovered early on that it's somebody that's transgender, the national media drops it immediately. There have been a number of different because people began to notice these patterns and talk about these patterns, and so there have been efforts to cover it up. There was a fact check in Reuters. Majority of U.S. mass shooters are cis men, not transgender or non-binary people. Well, and they don't talk about percentages of the population. They don't do a comparison of, all right, what percentage of the transgender community commits mass shootings versus what percentage of the non-transgender community carries out this mass shootings. Instead, they do an apples and oranges, and they're like, well, most of the shootings are, well, most people by far are not transgender. I did find one of the attempts to dismiss this recognition as somewhat humorous, because there was, which one was it? One of the studies that was done regarding mass shooting in order to determine the comparison, it went back to, is it a spokesperson for the Violence Project, which records data on mass shootings in the U.S. since 1996, with 4 more people killed in the public, told Reuters via an email that Nashville is the first case of a trans perpetrator in their database per their methodologies, which, of course, as I listed to you, half a dozen, so that wasn't true. But they go back to 1966 in order to show how few, compared to non-transgenders, kill people. Well, yeah. You go back to the beginning of time and really have a huge divide there. Not a lot of transgenders in the 1960s or 70s or 80s or 90s. Certainly not to the degree that they exist today. We've got to get a quick traffic update. And then the other part of this that is just, it's mean, straight up mean. They portray themselves as being the great protectors of these people and their reputations in the trans community. Yet they are doing so much damage to these people. Those that are taking people with either autism, which is a huge segment of this population they target, girls who have been victims of sexual assault, and people with severe depression, and convincing them that all their troubles will be solved if they get a sex change operation. Now, you're telling me that's compassionate? That is beyond snake oil. These people do not care about the trans community. These people are predators that prey on people with autism, victims of sexual assault, and people that suffer severe depression in order to coax them and convince them that they have this magic pill called a sex change operation that will stop them from going down a path of death and destruction. And then, gosh, imagine the shock when after that doesn't work, some of these people go off the rails. Here's the latest traffic. Hey, do I got some big... oh, dang it. All right, got some... Sorry, I had a glitch on my phone here. As I'm looking at my notes sent over from my friends at Pinnaker Honda, huge Labor Day savings happening this weekend. This is the weekend to trade up. Pinnaker Honda offering an additional $1,000 toward your trade when you purchase a new vehicle, and they have lots of fabulous new inventory on the lot to choose from, including the new 2025 Honda HR-V as low as $332 a month. 2025 Honda Civic Sports hatchback for as low as $377 a month. Those are finance payments, not leases. Great interest rates available through Labor Day weekend. Rates starting as low as 0.99% on new and certified pre-owned vehicles. You can get into the rugged new Honda Ridgeline rates as low as 0.99%, or take advantage of a special program that is running through the weekend for $1,500 off the new Ridgeline. That is some of what you can get this weekend. Don't forget Friday, of course. We got they have Food Truck Friday over there at Pinnaker Honda as well in South Campbell, just south of Walnut Lawn. I want you to think about the following for a moment. You were told by your doctor that you have a terminal illness and that you are going to die. You can only imagine sort of emotional roller coaster that's going to put you on. But the doctor, along with perhaps some other professionals, medical and otherwise, tell you they have a cure. It's a magic cure. But it will allow you to live. They tell your family the same thing. That this is the one thing that will prevent you from dying. Imagine how elated you would be. Particularly if for several years you believe that you are dying of this disease. Of course, there's some real financial commitment that's necessary and some physical commitment on your part as well. But after all, these people have the cure. You have been told you are now going to live because of this cure. And so you go forth with it. Your family is supportive because, of course, they want you to live. And then afterwards, you find out it didn't help at all. And furthermore, when you go back to those people and say, this did not help, I'm still dying, they're dismissive of you. That's what these young so-called trans kids go through. They're told that you may kill yourself. Your life will end if you don't go through with this, and this will fix your woes, and then it doesn't. Can you imagine what that is like? That is not compassion. That's not medicine. That is one of the worst, most inhumane scams in existence. And we shouldn't be shocked when some of those people snap and go on killing sprees because they don't know how else to deal with their anger and rage. News in 60 seconds. Springfield's Talk 104.1. Hello and welcome to the show, everyone. My name is Nick Reed. It's great for you to be here. We are going to, in the 8 o'clock hour, replay an author of the week from last year. And let's see, Mary Olahan, I think is her name. Mary Catherine Olahan? It's a very Catholic name, or a very Irish name. Same thing, I guess. To be honest with you,
it's not the same thing.
Well, it dovetails, as they say. And but she wrote such an important book called D-Trans, and it's all about young people who had been falsely led into believing that their issues would be solved with getting a sex change operation, and how some of them were able, or those in the book anyhow, they were able to come out the other side. They were healthy of health mind enough to where they realized after it was done, this was not the solution to their problems. And just what you learn in the book is it's like groomers. There is a pattern, the same pattern every time, like with groomers that are grooming young people for sexual stuff. It's just always this pattern, and you can see it from a distance once you know what it is that you're looking for. And when they groom young people to get these sex change operations, you can also see these exact same patterns. And I know a lot of you listening right now probably have someone in your family that is a person, teen, preteen, that is being told by this little politically active community that this is the answer to their problems, and they're trying to, like a cult, separate them from you, telling your loved one that you are the danger and that they are bad for you, and so try to peel you away. But I would recommend this book, and of course ABC Books on North Glenstone, you can get it there. So you can sort of see the warning signs and get an understanding of how the perpetrators manipulate the victims into this. And they fall into a number of categories, oftentimes talking about the victims. Young people with autism are targets, particularly females that have been sexually assaulted and are going through puberty. Those are targeted victims, and then just sort of overall depression and those that suffer from antisocial issues and behaviors and so forth more broadly are targeted as well. And so it can at least help you understand what it is that they're dealing with, because they are victims. And I recommend you do listen to that interview coming up in the 8 o'clock hour and check out the book as well. What was I going to... I wanted to mention, and I did the last couple days or so, there is a video that, of course, we have up at my Facebook page, Nick Reed, and it is the final product of the outdoor living space created by Hunter Hardscapes and Outdoor. It is really just changed the way that we hang out with each other as a family, which is an awesome thing. And it is such craftsmanship, top-of-the-line quality. And in fact, yesterday, my wife's like, should we do a fire this weekend? And so, heck yeah. My family loves fire for ambiance purposes. And we have a wood-burning fireplace in our house. Obviously, can't use it during the summertime, but especially with these cool nights, the ability to have that awesome smokeless fire pit outside is just, an additional bonus that gives us a place to hang out together naturally. Hunter Hardscapes and Outdoor, you can find them at hunterhardscapes.com. And again, that video, it's a very short video from beginning to end on my Facebook page, which is Nick Reed. Latest news update.
And the first alert forecast from Ozarks First meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by St. Clair of the Ozarks Home Improvements. Today we'll see a 70% chance of showers throughout the morning and then cloudy skies with a high near 70. Tonight, partly cloudy with a low around 58. For your Friday, mostly sunny with a high near 81. And taking a look at Saturday, sunny skies with a high near 86.
Chrissy Volnecki joining us this morning.
Yes,
Hey,
good morning.
You know who, and I'm just really surprised I haven't not seen any news coverage in terms of reaction on this. Of course, one of the big news items this week was the announcement that Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce were getting
gosh, yeah.
But what about James Comey?
Oh, you know what?
We should be concerned about him because clearly with that weird, creepy video he put out a couple weeks ago. Yeah.
Thinking about this yesterday.
Yeah, you probably thought about it at the same time I did. It hit me yesterday. I was like, oh, I can't believe I didn't mention that, or I hadn't thought about that before. I bet we thought about it at the same time.
Yeah, speaking of mental illness.
Yeah, no kidding. What a weirdo. He's probably sulking around. He's going to find seashells on, the beach.
It's a guy in charge of the FBI.
Crazy guy.
I know. And you think like you
Creepy
apply.
weirdo.
Can you imagine applying the FBI and you're like, and I didn't get in, and this guy was the head of the FBI.
For those of you that missed it, James Comey had posted a video. It was like 10 minutes long, or maybe not that long, but it was 8 or 9 minutes long a couple weeks ago, and he was just going on and on about Taylor Swift and how he's been going to her concerts for years. I mean, he named him sort of like a stalker, on this date, this one, and what it meant to me, and how I've used those lyrics as inspiration, and how it was the sort of thing that I guarantee you, if it were not the director of the FBI, but it was just some scuzzy looking 55-year-old guy that was posting videos like that, her security team would have been informed. Like, hey, this is somebody that, we just kind of need to make sure he doesn't show up at concerts anymore. He says he's been going to them. Clearly, he's got some sort of obsession about her, and so we need to keep an eye out.
I can't think of who it is. There's a guy who posted on X. He said, if you're a man and you're openly excited about this marriage, then you're a woman.
You should try out for the Vikings cheerleader squad.
Oh, that is so.
We were trying to. I think yesterday. I don't know that I can think of any American marriage, celebrity or otherwise, in my lifetime that has garnered as much attention.
I know. I mean, and then some of the reaction to this on social media is crazy.
Well,
to me.
I heard, somebody was talking about one of the more absurd postings of just sort of over the edge. Like, okay, calm down a little bit. It was somebody that was part of the Washington press pool.
Oh, I saw that.
Yeah,
Did you, the woman?
Yeah.
Yeah, that was crazy.
I-
And she was saying that, like, telling the camera they needed to come back because she wanted to talk about it. I know, and she just kept saying, well, the thing that bothered me about that, because she kept saying, "Oh my God," I was like, "Well, you're using." I noticed
Yeah.
that. I'm like, "You're using God's name in vain,
Right.
and you're being
Over
like,
this.
yeah."
Of all
And you're
things.
standing on the White House lawn. I'm like, what? Like that? How unprofessional are you? That just reveals their true colors. But you know, it's funny. I love that was crazy because I'm always in court, but I happen to be in my office, so I keep the news on, and I would walk by my TV, and I don't have the volume up. But during that press conference, I was like, man, that thing is going on for hours.
Oh, the cabinet meeting
I mean,
one?
I'm sorry,
Or-
not the the cabinet meeting.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh my gosh, they're not stopping. And they didn't even take a break. And I would get up and go to the bathroom, and there's
Well, and that you mentioned the bathroom. That's what I think about. What if you're Marco Rubio sitting there right next to him, and you have got to go to the bathroom really badly? What do you do?
oh yeah, they're like,
Do you
this
excuse
guy
yourself, or
is-
you're like, I'm just going to go in my pants? Well, I mean, honestly, because I'll be embarrassed locally here, but at least I won't be seen on TV going. And everybody like, where'd he go? He must have had to go to the bathroom. And
yeah, and I was thinking, I wonder if he told everybody that this is gonna be a long time. You have to go to the bathroom beforehand.
yeah,
I was thinking that the
don't
whole
drink,
time.
don't drink anything an hour before it starts because.
I was at my computer and I walked out to go to the restroom. I'm like, is this live?
Like, why do
still-
they keep replaying this?
I was like, they're still going. But the reason I bring that up about when they're in the boardroom is that when one of the media members had asked Trump his reaction, but the way they said it was like
Right.
the biggest pop culture news, I can't remember what they said, of the year or something. It's so dramatic. And then I saw like JD Vance is sitting there, everybody's waiting for what they're gonna say, and then he starts laughing. I mean, Trump was nice and like said something nice, but it's like, what do you want me to say? You want me to be so over the top hysterical about they're getting married?
I think that's probably what they wanted.
Yeah.
Some did anyhow. I think some genuinely have gotten to the point where they just sort of are curious because Trump does sometimes throw these curveballs. And I think even maybe those that don't hate Trump or trying to set Trump up in their minds, set him up, they're genuinely curious. Like, I wonder what Trump has to say about this. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And then the other reporter, did you talk about that when she was talking about being assaulted in D.C.?
Oh, I know.
Yeah.
Well, that
I mean-
didn't happen. Everything's wonderful in D.C.
What?
Oh,
Mayor.
yeah.
I mean,
In fact,
we started talking about this 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago.
So
I couldn't believe it.
The mayor has really been playing both sides of this. And I don't even know that that's necessarily in like a really bad way. It would be fantastic if, of course, she were like, yep, this is 100% awesome. I'm fully behind it. But what she's trying to do, which, her constituency, 94% of them voted against Trump,
Yeah.
and so she has been somewhat vocal about, well, she doesn't like the fact that Trump is going about it this way, but she's not lying about the results. And we have to give her credit for that because Democrats lie about results all the time. They're constantly lying and pretending, that what's happening isn't happening, what is happening isn't happening. And this is, to that point, the mayor at a press conference yesterday or the day before, this is in D.C.
So, to share with you, and I know that there have been data shared throughout this period, and this is a chart. It's been it shows, and this is the type of categories that the chief reports to me on a weekly basis about what's happening in crime in the district. We've highlighted the area in yellow that shows the impact of the surge of FBI, DEA, ATF, and Park and Capitol Police and other federal agencies in the district. And the federal surge has had a significant increase on crime in Washington, D.C. And we greatly appreciate the surge of officers that enhance what MPD has been able to do in this city. The most significant thing that we are highlighting today is the area of crime that was most troubling for us in 2023. Now, we have driven it down over the last years,
Which of course didn't
but I'm going to get my glasses so I can make sure I can see it correctly.
Because I can't believe
but for
these numbers.
carjackings, the difference between this period, this 20-day period of this federal surge and last year represents a 87% reduction in carjackings in Washington, D.C. We know that when carjackings go down, when the use of gun goes down, when homicide or robbery go down, neighborhoods feel safer and are safer. So this surge has been important to us for that reason.
So I think she does deserve credit for fully acknowledging this. And now, when she referenced that the numbers were coming down, what we now know is, of course, the chief of, or whatever.
There's a commander or something.
Commander was put on leave for falsifying the numbers, and there's a DOJ investigation into that. So, which actually makes you wonder if the drop was even more drastic because the numbers were higher last year than they were being reported.
Right.
And I think now there are realistic reportings, and so it's probably even greater than 87%.
Well, beginning, she did have a press conference and said when it first started that they didn't have a crime problem.
Yeah.
So she's totally turned around. And so she might be playing both sides, but somebody told her that you better stop fighting this, like for her own political survival. Maybe it's some of the donors to the Democratic Party or something. They're saying we're on a losing side of this issue when you have, a city that's 90% black and you are trying to help the city and then you are fighting against them as the mayor to keep them safe. I think somebody probably said something to her because I was shocked when she thanked Trump. I know.
But the other, it really is a sad thing, and we have played bits of audio, played one yesterday. Well, okay, so there's been two types of audio, I should say, I've been playing. One, which is primarily women of color. There have been some men of color, but black women that have made their own postings about how much better it is on social media. And those will get picked up and shared on social media. And then there is, for example, yesterday played audio of, it was a local reporter in Chicago asking a black woman if she's like, yeah, it's a lot safer and this needs to happen, and, pushing back on the narrative that, oh, everything's getting better and fine. She's like, no, this was in Chicago. We need what Trump is doing, and this defund police stuff is BS. And I'm thinking to myself, and so this is what's sad. Because I was thinking the best way to word this. You see these isolated incidents of these people's voices being heard, and it's either because of a local reporter asking them, or it is because they are posting their own on social media. And these are all black people, primarily black women. And then you think, why isn't there a greater narrative about this? And I realize it's because, and this is a sad thing, people who live in Washington, D.C., people who live in Chicago, that, for example, want protection and are in favor of safer cities, they literally have no elected representative to represent them.
Right.
They have no voice. True. You look at, because they're all Democrats, and so they're all against Trump. There are no elected Republicans to in the area that represent them to have events, to hold press conferences, to have the podium. Like, and it makes me so just crazy when I see Democrats are doing that, but it's for that Garcia MS-13 wife beater. Yeah. Oh, they'll have a press conference with him, and they'll all lay hands on him and sing songs for him. But when it comes to, black people in the city that you're supposed to represent, you not only ignore them, but you go out and claim that they're not telling the truth about stuff. And so these people have no representation. None.
Yeah, I think
other than Trump.
Yeah. Which I think on their license plate it says taxation without representation.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I'm just so the thing is, I agree with you, but I am so shocked that she even acknowledged Trump.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm very I mean, because I think it's gotten to the point where they have to say something, because if you're gonna align yourself and start campaigning on that, I'm siding with criminals for the next election. I'm siding with criminals and then mental illness and Minnesota. I mean, I no one's gonna win for the Democrats.
If you take out the hatred for Trump, what downside is there? That's the crazy thing.
Right.
You are an 87% drop in hijackings. They went, how long have they gone without any murders? I don't know if they had, I know at one point 12 days it was longer than anybody could even find recorded.
Yeah, it's like 2 weeks.
Yeah,
or something.
and it's like, how can you, what is the downside? What are you afraid of? If you were to be like, you know what, we do really need help, other than ego and you hate Trump, what, there is no doubt. I mean, God forbid you save lives. And you compare this to the total BS virtue signaling and tax dollars spent in the name of Black Lives Matter that did nothing to ever save any black lives. Yeah. But Donald Trump, how many black lives have been saved in D.C.?
Yeah, right.
How many black lives could be saved in Chicago, where dozens get shot every weekend and half a dozen die every weekend, if you have the diminished killings that we are seeing in D.C.? So that they don't care about black lives.
Yeah.
They don't care at all.
They care about their political party.
They would rather black people die than team up with Donald Trump.
Yeah.
And that's
because they don't want him to be successful. So they would rather, they want to save their party. And then if Trump is successful, then that helps the Republicans.
And even around, even areas in Springfield, and I'm sure you can go to the Roundtree neighborhood and find a bunch of people that hate Trump and call him a dictator for, federalize in Washington, D.C., but I bet they had a BLM sign in their yard.
Yeah, right.
Which did absolutely nothing, other than just scam people out of God knows how many millions and millions of dollars, and corporations as well. But when it comes to actually doing something that actually does care, they have no interest in it whatsoever, and in fact, they fight against it. And that is their hatred leads them so strongly that they would rather black people die than admit that maybe Donald Trump on this one issue is correct.
Yeah. Well, and they never cared for black people or minorities.
It's virtue signaling.
Yeah, right.
Black people are like everybody. How can I, when it comes to BLM, they could use that concept of claiming Black Lives Matter to them to virtue signal. Look how much superior I am, to other people. Look how wonderful I am. But when it actually comes to supporting something that does make a difference when it comes to black lives, they're nowhere to be found. Other than protesting against it. No kings. We'll go protest holding up no king signs. Oh, yeah, you really care about black people.
And there's not one issue that makes them look crazier than that.
Yeah. I don't know, trans maybe, but it's a race.
That's right.
Or, for kids and drag shows for kids and pornography in school. So there's a lot of issues that make you look crazy. Race to the bottom.
I remember was on last night TV, and some Democrat, maybe was on one of those talk shows yesterday, but he was saying that crime is a part of our fabric, and it's always been there, and that we can't defeat crime.
Oh, I can tell you who it was. It was that idiot Congressman Raskin.
Yeah, that's right.
That this is just part of who we are. Like, we should embrace it and be proud of it.
What are you talking about? And then, do you know how many studies? It would be interesting to see how much money has been spent in every city in the United States studying how to defeat crime.
I know.
Yeah.
I know.
And so they've hired all these consultants, and Trump goes in, he does it in like a day, 2 weeks, whatever.
And I want to say other thing, because I've heard it from who I think is actually a reasonable person. That's Harold Ford Jr. He's a Democrat, but he's not. I think he is a reasonable person. And he says and he's very on board with some of this stuff Trump is doing, and he says that, and that his party is out of their minds. But he says what needs to happen is that Republicans, Trump, they need to, really on a congressional level, pass a crime bill that will give all of the money and resources to these cities. But they won't use them to fight crime.
Right.
That doesn't do any good unless they use it. They've made it very clear they'll take money hand over fist, but they will not use those tools in a meaningful way. That's the whole problem here. It isn't a money problem. It is an approach problem. And we see that with what had been going on in Washington, D.C., and then Donald Trump, much like the border, in a week takes care of it.
I know. That's right. Well, you wonder, are they stupid or they don't care about solving the problem?
I think that's a large... And Trump.
Yeah,
because they hate Trump.
Yeah. And for some reason, I think that's the way that they keep the power, because they don't want to solve the problem. And then, well, I got to stay in power. I got to study the issue to death. And then, maybe in 100 years we'll figure this out. And then Trump
give
just
ourselves
goes in.
awards and, all that stuff. And then, or they fix the numbers, which is what we've learned has been going on. Christy Filnacki with us more. Coming up, the Pyramid Roofing Company text line 447 KSGF. I'm Nick Reed.
Springfield's Talk 1041, the first alert forecast from Ozarks First meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by J&S Automotive. Today we'll see a 70% chance of showers throughout the morning and then cloudy skies with a high near 70. Tonight, partly cloudy with a low around 58. For your Friday, mostly sunny with a high near 81. And taking a look at Saturday, sunny skies with a high near 86. And the Pyramid Roofing Company, with the recent rain, some of you may have experienced roofing issues. If that's the case, don't go go at it alone and don't go with some random door knocker. Make sure that you have a trusted professional on your side, and I recommend Josh and his team over at the Pyramid Roofing Company. The Pyramid team, they offer free roof inspections for you, and they also work with you through the insurance process without making you sign anything. And I like to mention that because not all roofing companies offer that for you. So whether you need a whole new roof, maybe just a roof repair, or metal roofing services, the Pyramid team, they have got you covered. You can schedule that free roof inspection with Josh today, and you can find all of the contact information for the Pyramid Roofing Company under the Sarah's Endorsements tab at ksgf.com.
Christy Filnecki with us. Are
Yes.
you a Cracker Barrel family?
Oh my gosh, yes.
Are you?
Do you know what?
I didn't know if, like, being Comanche, if there was some sort of
No,
conflict or issue.
There's no conflict.
Okay, I didn't know.
But you know what? I was going to say the crazy thing. So I hadn't heard any of the controversy until we talked about it last week, and then literally, like, it blew up everywhere that same day.
That's why.
So yeah. So because this is cutting edge right here. I 104.1.
We lead the nation.
You guys broke the story.
Yeah, we lead
all
the
of a sudden,
nation.
I'm like, why is this story like blew up just on Thursday of last week, and then it was resolved.
Well, I love how, I don't know whether one was related to the other or not, but just the timing of Trump saying they should just go back to their old logo, take advantage of the fact that they have a lot of eyes on them, and it may be tough to navigate that, but you can turn this around, which is great. So smart business advice and that's one of the things just politically and business wise that makes Trump so successful is when you recognize, okay, this isn't working, or we have to pivot, we have to figure out how to change in order to make it work. And that was his advice. And of course, then it was, I think, just later or the next day, they're like, we're going back to the old money. Well, now they have apparently taken down their Pride page as well. They quietly removed the Pride page, which I imagine most people didn't even know was there. Because when you go, for the few people who have actually gone to the Cracker Barrel website, it is in all likelihood to look at the menu.
Yeah.
You know, so I don't even know how one found the Pride page. But according to this story, they removed the Pride page from their website. The website link for Cracker Barrel's Pride page, which used to boast that the company was bringing the porch to Pride, now redirects to its culture and belonging page.
Bringing the Porsche at Pride?
Yeah.
I mean, was that woman fired?
No, she hasn't been. I don't know if she will. So I have no idea.
Don't know. She needs to be fired.
But-
That's terrible. What does that have to do with having a restaurant?
So, okay.
Okay, so let me just ask you this question.
Yeah.
So if you are part of the Pride movement, whether you're straight or gay or whatever, what are you going to,
lie.
what kind of information will you get from the Cracker Barrel website that's going to further your cause for Pride? So I'm like, what exactly... Is it like how to make a pride flag? Like what exactly? What
I'm
information?
sure it was virtue signaling, just telling them how much we love you, and I'm sure that's what it was, honoring you, and you know.
Did they go through each demographic? That we love the country people that support us. We love you families that come in and shop, you know, before you eat.
Well, so now this, okay, I guess just to further pile on Cracker Barrel. Which is such a weird thing, because the funny thing about this is the people that keep going on and like piling on are people that actually like Cracker Barrel. You know, it's not like people who hate Cracker Barrel and have been looking for a reason to really nail them. This is a big family drama going on.
But you've seen those memes when the guy gets up from the chair and then Trump's there and they're dancing together.
No,
Trump's dancing and then they put Trump in overalls with the guy.
Yeah,
So funny.
I haven't seen that.
Yeah.
But all right, so this story mentioned that it now goes to their culture and belongings page. So I thought, well, I'm going to go check this out and see what it is. Now, first of all, I don't consider any of this woke. Like what the traditional woke. So that's not what this is. But it says culture and belonging. Everyone feels at home at Cracker Barrel. At Cracker Barrel, welcoming people has always been at the heart of who we are. When we take care of one another, we're able to take even better care of the people who walk through the door. Good people, good work, good company. Here's what we're all about: focusing on you. Your well-being matters. At work and in life, we provide experiences and benefits crafted just for you. In it together. Our teams are built on real relationships and mutual respect. Together, we create a culture of belonging where everyone feels supported and appreciated. Thrive your way. The skills you'll learn and the people you'll meet will help you get from where you are to where you want to be, and you make the moment. Bring your warmth and authenticity to create memorable moments. The goodness of country hospitality starts with you. And then it has this whole we're in it together thing. We've got each other's back. We are part of each other's stories and stuff. All that sort of stuff just annoys the living daylights out of me. It's just this sort of and again, it's not a woke thing. And this is just a person. We're all in it together, and you're a restaurant, okay? I mean, let's really get down to it here. You are a restaurant that has food that people tend to like. I'm one of them.
Yeah.
And friendly servers. And then you have a store with lots of old-fashioned sodas and candies that people like me like to look at because it's nostalgic. And then you've got quilts over here, and you've got some toys over there. And you're not what the United Nations is trying to be here. It's like, they're not the only ones that do this. This became a thing back, I don't know when it became when all of a sudden businesses really wanted you to believe that they're so much more than what they are. Like, now we're all in this together. No, I'm coming to you because I want some chicken. Or
I know.
You know what I mean? And that's not an insult to what you do. I'm glad you do it, but I don't need you telling me. I don't need 3 pages telling me that we're all in it together and encouraging me to thrive my way.
Is this for people that are applying for a job?
No, it's not. In fact, what
are your action steps? What are you supposed to do after you get on that page?
There was a Tech Talk. No, not Tech Talk. Sorry. Tech Talk. This is the old show that we had here on Saturdays with Luke Davis. TED Talk.
Yeah.
And I forget the name of the guy, but he did a talk that was so popular it became a book called Start With Why. And it was about how so many of the companies and movements out there aren't about the product or the service itself, but it's about the motivation behind it. And he used as example even like Martin Luther King Jr.'s message of, civil rights and why it was that Apple became so popular and their, versus what Microsoft was trying to do, and Starbucks was used as an example. And when you read through it, it's very, very interesting, and how people are oftentimes more driven by why you're doing, because then they feel like they're part of something. And I feel like a lot of people read that book and were like, we have to start doing this.
That's right.
We have to do, every commercial has to be about, we're something bigger than what we are, and we're in this together. And you see it all the time, ads like Subaru or so many of these others where they don't even talk about the product. It's just all this virtuous stuff about, being together, this cause or that cause. And it just went from, it seemed to me, 0 to 60 really fast, to where it became background noise. And all of a sudden, what once upon a time was, in that book in particular, highlighted as rare and effective because of the authenticity, everyone started copying it. And so it wasn't authentic or rare anymore.
Right.
It's sort of like these Democrats that try to act like Donald Trump and think that that's going to make them popular. That's not how it works. You're just mimicking him in order to try to grab the authenticity that makes people drawn to him. But by mimicking it, it's no longer authentic. And so I think that the cultural and belonging, it's almost this belief companies have that, we have to make sure people understand that we're doing this, there's so much more meaning behind it than it is. And instead of being like, we make good food, we'd love for you to come eat it.
Well, yeah. And what good does that do? I mean, I can see like your employees, if you want to say,
right,
we work as a team.
Absolutely.
That's fine.
100%.
It's totally different from that.
100%.
And all of that squishiness and all of that stuff, all it does is make problems in the workforce. Because I will tell you, as a business owner, it's hard to find people who want to work. And so, I mean, why don't you just tell them we work as a team? You are expected to show up and do your work. We don't have a culture of you get to do whatever you want and we'll let things slide. And so that part of focusing on the culture is not good for the workforce. I don't think.
Everyone deserves to feel seen and valued. I'm like, really, everyone? Like, what about the trans shooter? What about Timothy McVeigh?
Right?
Are we got these blanket statements?
It's just like, if that's for employees, just show up and do your job.
Yeah.
Okay?
And I'm with you. I think that it's great to create a culture of, that's for the employees that might be different than what the customer experience is. But I don't know. It's just it is, for me, that sort of thing has become annoying because it's so overdone.
I know.
And it's like obligatory. Companies feel like, well, this is something we have to do.
Well, and saying is that it leads to a workforce that they're very entitled. Like, what are you going to do for me? Because this is all about me, and it's not about me showing up and working.
Yeah, there's some truth to that.
Yeah, and so I mean, I've seen that, and it's hard enough to get employees to actually show up, but then it's like, well, what are my benefits, and what are you going to do for me?
Yeah, center of the universe syndrome.
Yeah. And so that's the same people that invented that.
All right. Well, really ripped on that. Ripped on those trying to make the. Right. We took those people that are trying to lift everyone up, make the world a better place. Really ripped them for a good 5 minutes.
Disable all of these website pages that you have and leave the menu on there.
Yeah, all the feel good stuff. Anyway. All right. Christy Volnecki's with us. We got more coming up. Traffic update. I'm Nick Reed. Christy Volnecki joins us.
Yes.
Did you have anything in particular that you wanted to chat about? Sometimes, there'll be 2 minutes left, and you'll be like, "Oh, there was something I wanted to talk about."
No, but my daughter just got back. She was in San Diego training, and it was so cool. She went to the Naval Base San Diego and Camp Pendleton, and so she was able to, fly and go on a sub and do everything. But she said, and Sarah Ryan's probably said, boy, the culture in the military is changing.
I've heard this.
So, yeah. And so I don't think I talked about that, but for the first time, they're having a Marine that's going to be he is now the superintendent of the academy. And it is all about you're here because we're going to eventually go to war with China is what they're telling him. But that's the whole goal. You're not here for anything else. And she said,
you're not here for you.
Yeah, I know.
I mean, really.
Yeah, exactly. And she said, boy, it is changing, and the fleet. And so
that's great
it's
for America.
It is. It's good. And because it just confuses kids, too. I mean, the whole thing is confusing. So at least, like, now you know what the purpose of the military is. So.
Well, and maybe, I'm sure this has already begun, they quit pitting one against one another. That whole DEI stuff, I'd never in my life seen the apparent attempt to, within a military, create conflict and destroy from within. And so you would have these DEI teachings in which, you've got people of color with white people, and they're learning about how awful white people are and how privileged they are. It's like, who in their right mind says, I know what let's do as we develop a fighting force? Let's create a lot of infighting and resentment from within. What sort of idiot do you have to be?
No one is unified.
Yeah, and then claim, no, that's diversity and strength. That makes us stronger. Are you an idiot?
You know,
You
yeah,
you
and you
have to
can,
be an idiot, or you're deliberately trying to sabotage the military.
yeah. And I always thought you have all of these things that you're supposed to, all of this training that you're supposed to unite people. You have uniforms, so everyone looks
Yeah.
the same except for the ranking, and you're doing everything you can to pull them apart.
You know, another thing about all of that, just stupid, gross, divisive, woke stuff, is like when I see it being pushed by like a Jasmine Crockett or, you know, these sort of typical left wing people, it's one thing. But when you see somebody like Millie, these older white guys do it, there's something pathetic about it. You know what I mean?
I know.
Like here you have somebody and they're all, you know, they're just all decorated up and they're just all presenting themselves as tough military. And then they're all this mamsy-pamsy, divisive, self-destructive stuff. And there's just something about it. It's like the worst presenter of that sort of stuff. It's gross.
People are being demoted or fired
Should
that
be.
in the military right now.
Should be put in the
So I-
clink.
No, that's right. But I'm excited. I mean, it's good for morale. I mean, now people actually want to join the military. I mean, for recruiting. I
Oh yeah,
think.
they've hit their quotas.
They've been hitting those
Yeah.
numbers ahead of time, which is much different than missing them.
Yeah. I know.
To where the previous administration kept dropping standards,
Yeah.
and then you have exceeding in terms of recruitment and upping the standards.
Yeah. Well, I know. And then, but you expect, I mean, here you have Biden that can hardly walk. And then you're expected to go in and be a fighting force to defend your country and put your life on the line. And you have a guy that can't even walk up the stairs in the airplane that's your commander in chief.
Well,
So-
it was windy. Remember when he fell down the stairs? Your almost fell.
Bike.
It was
Was it
really
windy?
It's gusty. You know, I think it was near a lakefront. Those lakefront winds that come in, it can be very difficult.
That's right. I mean, you cannot have a contrast between a guy that goes 3 hours in his board meeting and not go to the bathroom.
Did you?
Shih Tzu.
So the New York Times, Hegseth, and they've been doing to really highlight the presidential challenge. I guess this whole push-up thing, yeah, which I think is awesome.
Yeah.
But so the New York Times had this whole piece about how, well, that could actually people, you know, you could be putting people in danger. What about people that aren't able to do it and they try to do it? And I'm like, well, then they won't be able to do it. It's not like you're saying. It's not like you're.
that.
It's the New York Times.
No.
It's not like you're challenging people to do surgery on their own leg and like, well, what happens? You know, yeah, if you have somebody who doesn't know what they're doing, they're probably going to really harm themselves. But you're talking, if you can't do a pull-up, you can't do it. It's not like, you know, you're going to, all of a sudden, it's going to be like the COVID era where emergency rooms are overflowing. They're like, what the heck's going on here? Well, they were all trying to do 100 push-ups. You know, they just started exploding and hearts were falling off and they were going crazy.
How can they not see that focusing on exercise is good for America? I mean, and just write like a little simple piece about heart disease in America, and then you'll see that it doesn't hurt anything.
And here's the other thing, and it really is it's such a like a clear division between the way the left views things and then normal people view things. And part of the criticism of that is, well, most people can't do that. That's unrealistic. Well, that's kind of the point.
I know.
The point isn't to give people a challenge that everyone can already do.
Yeah, right.
Or that everyone will be able to do easily. It is to challenge people in which the vast majority of people are not even close to be able to, so that you improve, you get better, even if you get halfway there, or you go from not being able to do any chin-ups to being able to do 20 chin-ups. That's that's a thing that wouldn't have happened otherwise. But they're so worried about, well, not everyone can do it.
Like
and so
themselves, they're
yeah,
talking
I
about
know, right.
themselves sitting behind their computer and they're eating chips, playing video games, writing for the New York Times.
Yeah, but I mean, it's like that is the point. That's the
To
point.
challenge people to be the best version of themselves. I mean, I'm not sure how that's a bad thing.
I will say, and I would love to hear an answer for this, because I don't know that I noticed it until this issue came up a few weeks ago on The Five. And it was Greg Gutfeld who noted that he wants to know why in all of these different visuals that you have the working out.
Oh, yeah, I know what you're going to
RFK
say.
Jr. wears jeans.
Oh, no.
And it's true. I wonder why that is. Also, because that can't be comfortable.
Something I thought, it's hard for me to understand him sometimes. He said something about that he would do that so he didn't have to, he had jeans on, he was coming from hiking or something.
I don't know.
To go lift weights, and so then
No, I don't buy that.
I don't know, but they must be stretchy jeans.
They have locker rooms. You go in, you
that's
change.
true.
That's how normal people do. That's why it's not like every other person that is in there wearing shorts doesn't have somewhere else to go afterwards or whatever. So I mean, I'm not saying
Maybe
it's any.
he just likes the way he looks when he works out without a shirt on and has jeans on.
I don't think if so, not, and he is, I guess, arguably he's kind of weird. I don't know. That would be weird, but I don't know. Somebody maybe has real skinny legs or something going on. I don't know what the deal is. But it's just it's such a weird thing. All right, Christy Fonecki, as always, it is a tremendous
Thank you. That was a very
pleasure.
productive conversation.
Traffic update. Yeah, I know, as always. I'm Nick Reed. Another chance today to register for your chance to win tickets to Because You're Mine, the music of June Carter and Johnny Cash at the Atos Center. That performance, September 7th, 6 p.m. Text the word black to the Pyramid Roofing Company text line, 417-447-KSGF, and that will get you a registration entry. Excuse me. The upcoming hour, we are going to replay an Author of the Week from last year. Mary Margaret Olahan is her name, and the book is Detrans. And I thought that this would be, it's one of the authors that we have got the most positive feedback about. And given the whole discussion about trans, once again, due to yet another trans shooter targeting, again, Christians, I thought it would be a great time to replay this. And the entire book is based around young people who were falsely convinced that their emotional and psychological issues could be solved by getting sex change operations, only to realize it made things worse. And fortunately, they survived it to speak and to share their stories. And so that is going to be the subject matter of our Author of the Week coming up in the next hour, sponsored by ABC Books on North Glenstone. What does Chad have to say about Emily Johnson House Theory Realty? You may not know Chad, but you may know someone like Chad. Someone, perhaps even like you, who found yourself or finds yourself searching for a new home. Chad said Emily Johnson, hands down, best real estate agent we have ever worked with. Highly recommend her to anyone searching for a home in Springfield. Our journey to find the right home was challenging, but Emily was always patient. She was kind and proactive, going above and beyond every step of the way. Her extensive knowledge of Springfield and Nixa, Republic, Willard, Ozark, Stratford's housing market, neighborhood dynamics, and local resources was remarkable. When we needed contractors to upgrade our new home, she knew exactly who to call, and she made sure the entire process was stress-free. Emily also handled all of our paperwork with great attention to detail, and her expert negotiation skills secured us a fantastic price on our new home. If you want an agent who truly cares about your needs, choose Emily Johnson. You will not regret it. So you can be like Chad or not, and instead have a lesser experience. Your choice, totally. I recommend her. Sarah's talked to you about using her. Chad here, explaining why he loved her, and you can see so many other reviews, people just like you right here in the area who have utilized Emily Johnson for home buying, home selling. And by the way, even if you're just wondering what your home is worth, you're thinking about putting it on the market, but you don't really know if it's the right time, give her a call. She'll work with you and visit with you. It doesn't mean that you got to put it on the market right away or even at all at this point. Emily Johnson, House Theory Realty, under Nick's endorsements at KSGF.com. The trans shooter from yesterday, a lot of headlines, and immediately you have some people on the left, their number one concern, so they say, is making sure that people don't, blame the trans community. I don't know anyone that blames the trans community, recognizing that there is an unfortunate, disturbing pattern that has been emerging over the years with an increased number of young people specifically who have been convinced to get sex change operations or go through hormone therapies, and then they end up going on these shootings. It's not blaming the trans community. In fact, it is for a lot of people recognizing maybe things are being done to these young people that is either causing this behavior or contributing to this behavior. Perhaps these young people, if instead of selling them some false hope that a sex change operation is what they need in order to, quote, fix them, but instead actually focusing on the root of their problems and how to really truly fix it, or at least help fix it, maybe they wouldn't turn into killers. Now, I don't know that that is the case, but the fact that according to some people politically on the left, we can't even talk about that, don't think that does anyone any good, doesn't do any future shooting victims any good, and it doesn't do anyone any good who is a young person that is autistic or victim of sexual assault or depressed that is coaxed into going through these sorts of procedures. Our author of the week coming up is a repeat, but for good reason. Mary Margaret Olahan, and she has written the book Detrans, and this is a book that talks about, gets information, testimonials from young people who have been targeted for a number of different reasons and convinced by people they're told they're supposed to trust that they should get hormone therapy and sex change operations. Fortunately, they came out the other side, realizing that that was not the problem, and they were able to, as best as possible, backtrack, although you never can completely reverse the damage that is done with these operations and these chemical therapies and so forth. So we'll have that author of the week coming up, sponsored by ABC Books on North Glenstone. Now, the latest news update.
And the first alert forecast from Ozarks First meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by St. Clair of the Ozarks Home Improvements. Today we'll see a 70% chance of showers throughout the morning and then cloudy skies with a high near 70. Tonight, partly cloudy with a low around 58. For your Friday, mostly sunny with a high near 81. And taking a look at Saturday, sunny skies with a high near 86.
Nick Reed Thursday means it is Author of the Week, sponsored by ABC Books on North Glenstone, where you can, of course, go get any of the Author of the Week books that we have. And then we do have also, if you miss any past interviews with authors, you can go to ksgf.com in the podcast section, Author of the Week. It's a great resource for you as you try to decide what book is going to be the next book for you to read. And we have the author this morning, D-Trans, True Stories of Escaping the Gender Ideology Cult. Mary Margaret Olahan is with us, and I want to thank you for being with us this morning. This is an issue that I talk about quite often on the show for a number of different reasons. And if we could start off, what prompted you, compelled you to write on this particular subject?
Well, it's a story, and I guess I should say stories that the establishment media don't want to tell. And, you know, in my job as a conservative reporter, I view that largely as my job to tell the stories that aren't being told. Establishment media leaves this huge hole in our media coverage where there's all these different stories, whether it has to do with COVID or abortion or coverage of Republican candidates or things like that just are not told. And so when I started learning about detransitioners and how all these young people had gone through transitions or attempted transitions that they later deeply regretted, I thought, this is something that we need to dive into more. We need to share specifically their stories so that people can understand what they've been through. And I've truly believed that these stories are what is changing the tide on this gender ideology movement. You know, they're real stories. So that's what the book is. It's light on the commentary, heavy on the stories. And I really wanted to give people a good glimpse into exactly what happened, why these young people were motivated to seek such irreversible procedures, and what made them realize that it was impossible what they had attempted.
Well, let's talk about what motivates them. And to me, this is one of the most macabre and tragic aspects of this. Is it's not necessarily that we're talking about otherwise healthy young people, but people who are in need. And they're sold what seems to me to be this horrific, irreversible, what they're told is a cure. And I can't imagine anything more devastating if you are already, whether it's because of abuse or bullying or whatever the reason may be, feeling very insecure, thinking that there is no hope, and then you're told by someone that is an authority, oh, there is hope, and then only to find out not only was that a lie, but you have done irreversible damage to yourself physically and emotionally. It just seems like one of the cruelest things that is imaginable. So what is it that you have found with these stories leads some of these young people into this decision that they feel is the best one for them and their mental health?
Yes, I found that many of these young people were first exposed to gender ideology on the internet. They were largely, and I'm generalizing here, so this isn't true of every single person, but these are just general themes that I've noticed. Oftentimes, these young people are struggling in school, they're lonely, they might have parents going through a divorce or one parent that's struggling with their mental health in a certain way. Often with the girls, there's some kind of assault in their background where they were assaulted by someone. And many of these young people have told me that they were on the spectrum, or they believe that they were on the spectrum, but they were never diagnosed. And what will happen is they are lonely, so they turn to the internet and they look for companionship there. And unfortunately, there are way too many predators online who are far too easily accessible for young people. And so they'll stumble on these pro-transgender groups or pro-transgender pages. And what they'll be told is, oh, you're lonely, you feel like you don't fit in. That's probably because you are in the wrong body. And once the young people latch on to this idea, they potentially become obsessive about it, which is something that many people who are on the spectrum experience, is more obsessive behaviors about certain things. And so they'll really fixate on this, and the activists will tell them, if anyone tells you that you're not a different gender, you're not transgender, then they hate you and they want you dead. And they really foster this attitude in these young people that they must be accepted by their families and their loved ones, or else their families and their loved ones hate them and want them dead, which is a very evil and manipulative thing to do. And part of the reason that I used this phrase gender ideology cult, because I think you can see the cult-like aspects in trying to cut someone off from everyone that they love that might try and stop them from attempting these gender transitions. And so oftentimes what will take place is that the young people will decide, all right, I am transgender, and they'll begin using a different name, different pronouns, and the school that they're attending will likely affirm them and affirm this change. And the children, because these are children that we're talking about when they're minors, they will go to their parents and say, I want to get these gender transition procedures because they need their parents' consent. Or they did until recently. Some places now will help the children facilitate gender transitions without parental consent. And so once the children go to the parents generally love their children and care about them. And we know for sure that there are parents out there who, for selfish and narcissistic reasons, will try and transition their child or tell their child that they're transgender in an effort to promote themselves, the parents. That's definitely something that we see happen, especially with young kids like toddlers who the parents claim are transgender. Right. But I think largely what we see is parents of, average Americans who love their children, and their kids come to them and say, I think I'm transgender. And the parents don't know what to do because they're not super politically keyed into the political conversations. And so what they do is they go to the doctor and they seek the help of medical professionals, such as therapists or doctors or mental health professionals. And almost always what they're told is you need to affirm your child, or else they might be at risk of hurting themselves or committing suicide. And what all of these detransitioners told me when I was interviewing them was that their parents were asked, would you rather have a dead daughter or a living son? Or in the case of the boys, would you rather have a dead son or a living daughter? And that's a threat that's made to parents. It is intended to scare them and make them feel that if they don't affirm their child, their kid will kill themselves and it will be their fault. It's just a really horrible, evil lie that is sold to parents. It's not true. And so the parents, they're thinking, okay, well, the mental health professionals are telling me I have to do this or my kid will kill themselves. So they go along with it. And they consent to these procedures to be done. And often young girls will begin testosterone injections, which have really severe effects upon their muscle growth, their bone density, their hair, their skin, their emotions, their fertility, their sexual function. All of these things are very much impacted by the hormones. And then after a certain period of time, for the girls, there's an expectation that they will get a double mastectomy. And for most of these girls, they really haven't had an experience dating boys. They have never kissed a boy. Some of them had never even held hands with a boy. But these doctors and therapists are encouraging them to view themselves as, a completely different gender and to explore their sexual preferences when they might not even really have any yet, considering they're young teens and they don't really understand what they're getting into. And as their lawsuits are now saying, they weren't really able to fully give informed consent to these types of procedures, given that they didn't know what they were getting into. They weren't given all the information. And a lot of these hormonal injections are experimental, as the release of the WPATH files, the World Professional Transgender Health Association, has recently shown. The expose of those files showed that these supposedly expert doctors involved in WPATH know that the hormones are giving some girls tumors, and they know that the hormones are ruining some girls' fertility. And they know that some of these girls are not able to fully consent to the procedures because of their mental health issues, which, by the way, every single detransitioner had when they began this process. So we're seeing a whole bunch of lawsuits coming out recently of detransitioners suing their medical providers and saying, I was not able to fully consent to this. You lied to me. You pushed me down this path. And now I understand that all of this was manipulation and lies, and you were the ones that sold it to me.
We were talking with our author of the week, Mary Margaret Olahan. The book is Detrans, True Stories of Escaping the Gender Ideology Cult. Our author of the week interview sponsored by ABC Books on North Glenstone. One of the, what I understand anyhow, as I read more, particularly from the mouths of those who have been through this, is that they're told, well, this is all irreversible, that you don't have to worry about forever changing yourself. Essentially, there's no risk here, ultimately. Did you find when you interviewed these different young people who were detransing that they also had been led to believe that some of the changes were reversible, rather, if they changed their mind, or was that something that came up?
Well, for starters, we have to remember that these young people who are undergoing these transition procedures are largely deeply struggling with their mental health. So they're not in a good place to be understanding whether things are reversible or irreversible to begin with. But in many cases, they say that the doctors didn't really explain to them whether or not things were experimental or whether or not they were reversible. It was more of a matter of, you'll be happy if you undergo these transition procedures because it will relieve your gender dysphoria. So for the girls, many of these girls, they didn't understand that their fertility might be impacted. Nobody talked about that. And even if the doctors had explained that their fertility might be impacted, these are kids. So they don't understand what that means. Chloe Cole, for example, had never considered whether she wanted to breastfeed her children one day. It's just not something that little girls typically are thinking about or looking forward to. It's just not on their mind. But doctors didn't even bring this up to her when she got her double mastectomy. It was just fast-tracked, and
Right.
she went through the procedure, and now she no longer has breasts. And that's a huge implication for a woman, who she didn't know whether she even wanted to have a family one day. She hadn't really considered it. So that was taken away from her, and when she could not fully consent to it. But I think even worse than that, there were girls that there's been reports in the media that there were girls who didn't understand that their breasts were gone forever. There were some girls who naively, whether from naivete or from their mental health issues, believed their breasts would grow back. And that's the level of not understanding that was going on here, where these kids are thinking they don't understand biology apparently,
Right.
but they also are thinking, oh, this isn't irreversible. This will come back. And you can see how it could be even worse with the hormones, which are injected into your body and have stealth implications that you might not be aware of for quite some time.
With your time writing for the Daily Wire, the Daily Caller, now senior reporter covering culture and politics for the Daily Signal, you clearly were aware of, to some degree, what was going on. Of course, that's what prompted you to write the book. Were there stories from some of these individuals that you found yourself thinking, man, I knew it was bad, but I didn't know it was this bad?
Oh, for sure. I think I knew largely the big picture details of their stories, which are, of course, upsetting and very demoralizing. But for me, the hardest part of writing this book was to ask some of these really intimate questions about some of the most vulnerable moments. I made sure to ask everyone that had underwent a surgery, what were you thinking right before you went under? Do you remember? And, when you opened your eyes, who did you see and what did you think? And what was your drive home like? Things like that I think are really important for understanding where their head was at and what these moments were like for them. For Chloe Cole, for example, she told me that right before she went under, she was looking across the room and she saw this guy that was, a nurse or something, standing across from her, and he had this really weird expression on his face, and he was staring at her like he was very troubled. And she doesn't know what he was thinking, but she wondered at the time, or she wonders now, whether he was looking at her and thinking, what are we doing? This is a little girl that's about to undergo a double mastectomy. And then she went under, and she doesn't remember anything else because she did undergo a double mastectomy. Another really raw moment was Prisha shared with me that after her surgery, she also underwent a double mastectomy. When she woke up, her parents had to take her back to the hotel where she was going to recover because her surgery was done in an outpatient facility, so she couldn't stay there. And they took her back to the hotel, and she said they had Chick-fil-A that night. And she said she remembers it spilled in the car, and her dad was upset. And then they ate Chick-fil-A at the hotel. And she said that in the weeks following, her mom had to wash her wounds because they needed to be washed and dressed. And she said she couldn't raise her arms because of the recovery period, and she really needed help. And she described her mom washing her wounds for the first time, and she said they both cried. And they were both like deeply moved by this, which is so sad. You imagine this mother who loves her daughter and didn't know whether this was the right decision, and now she has to help her daughter through this next part. It's just tragic.
Yeah, you mentioned those files from that organization, and I read through some of those, and without getting too graphic, I remember a part that, again, even though I'm aware of what has been going on, but still it sort of stopped me in my tracks, and it was the acknowledgement that when there is the surgical attempt to reconstruct a male body part into a female body part, and how some of the individuals that this is done to, they have to on a daily basis tend to that, because what is happening is the body is trying to heal itself, and they are essentially forced to every day try and stop the body from healing itself. And there's just something about that, knowing that that's what your body is trying to fix what was done to it. And then you are instructed by medical professionals, no, you have to fight against your own body's attempt to heal itself.
Right. It's so wrong. And without getting too graphic, I think that type of story is really illustrative of how confusing this whole thing has become, where our body knows how to heal itself. Our body knows how to take care of ourselves. That was how our bodies were created to function. And yet we've come to this kind of Frankenstein point where some of our doctors and medical professionals have taken it upon themselves to try and craft fake or phantom body parts. And they don't work, and they try and heal. And that should be a good sign to us that these things are not meant to be. But unfortunately, we just keep pushing the envelope in that area.
Well, I appreciate you being with us this morning, and I appreciate the book as well, because I know that a lot of people, those that they do know this is wrong, and they have a sense of the manipulation that's taking place, but the horrors, and you're right, the Frankenstein style, this sort of it's a dark horror movie scenario where these people are just experimenting on living individuals and convincing them if they don't go through with it, then they may kill themselves. I just can't think of any darker moment in our history, and it seems as if the rest of the world they're slowly kind of figuring this out while we're way behind the curve on that. And we used to be a country that prided ourselves on being ahead of the curve with these sorts of things, particularly when it comes to science and medicine. So it's just such a horrible thing on a micro level and on a macro level. And I think it's important for people to read the stories of these real-life victims. Our author of the week, sponsored by ABC Books, Mary Margaret Olahan, the book Detrans, True Stories of Escaping the Gender Ideology Cult, Springfield's Talk 104.1. I'm Nick Reed.
This
I was chatting with my mom yesterday, and she was talking about planning early for the time when she's no longer there, and she said, we don't have a lot. She goes, but once we are gone, what little few things we have, we don't want you and your brother to have to worry about probate or government stepping in and making things a hassle. My family, we all get along, so for us, when it comes to that sort of thing, there's no concern or worrying about who gets this and who gets that in terms of hurt feelings. But even when you do get along, if that stuff isn't planned out ahead of time, then it just becomes a very expensive, long hassle just to get anything done, because government starts making decisions. They get involved. They don't let you make those decisions any longer on your own without their permission. And that's why Ozarks elder law is so important. That is why, even if you think, oh, there's not a lot, we don't have massive assets, and our kids get along, they'll be able to sort things out. Unfortunately, because of government, it just does not work that way. And so you need to make that appointment. When's the best time to do it? When it comes to anything and everything, whether it's power of attorney over you, medical, or dealing with finances, or even what happens with your assets when you're gone. When you turn 18 years old, no one can claim you any longer. And so if you don't have that stuff laid out, then government's going to claim you. And so that's why the age of 18 is when you need to make sure that you have that stuff done. Ozarks Elder Law, free consultation, 10 area locations will get you on your way to making sure that your life, your death, your health is not left in the hands of government. You can find them at ozarkselderlaw.com, also under Nick's endorsements at ksgf.com. Running just a little bit late here before we hit the traffic, but I wanted to note on this issue of transgenderism and our author of the week talking about the manipulation tactics that are used in order to convince young people that have emotional issues, that are oftentimes traumatized by sexual assault or even autistic. They get targeted by these people who want to manipulate them into believing they have to get sex change operations and castrations and chemical alterations in order to not kill themselves, in order to be happy. That manipulation is not only used on those targeted as young people to get the sex change operations, but also people in everyday life who are told you have to submit to the people who live that lifestyle. And when it comes to that outside, where I think there's two primary targets: parents of the kids, and this is a huge category, women and real women in general. We have seen the left in this country have created a hierarchy, and women are under men who claim to be women. Women are the ones who have to sacrifice their personal safety. They are the ones who have to sacrifice their modesty in the shower. They are the ones who have to sacrifice scholarships and placement when it comes to advancing to state in their particular sport. And I thought this was just such a profound example of how the manipulation is used against people who aren't even themselves directly in the so-called trans world. And there was an interview done with a former Roanoke College women's swim captain by the name of Lily Mullins. And she was relaying the story about how it was the first weekend in September of her junior season back in 2023. And that weekend, a team meeting was called to discuss a male who claimed to be a female swimmer who wanted to compete with them. So this is a sort of thing that we've seen play out before. And Mullins, the team captain, said that the meeting was over Zoom. And she said the purpose of the meeting was to bring us all together with this individual to, in a way, hash out whatever feelings or opinions we had to the individuals with administrators in the room. At one point, it was discussed that this individual, without the transition, had thought about and even gone through with planning a suicide, and that was something we were all told. And she said that before this meeting took place, all 19 girls on the swimming team had agreed we are not going to support a boy or a man at this point on our swimming team. And some of the concern was even for girls that they would compete against. They were selfless enough to, although recognize, well, that would give us an advantage over other girls, but they said that's not fair. And so all 19 of them had agreed. But she explained that once they got on that Zoom meeting and they were told with the guy there also on the meeting that he not only has thought about killing himself, that being allowed to swim as a girl on the team might be the thing that stops him from committing suicide. And she said they were then, after the suicide threat, told to go into a separate little chat room and vote on whether or not to allow the man to compete with them and to shower with them and locker room with them and so forth. And she said, of course, again, in the beginning, all 19 were on the same page. After the suicide threat, 17 of them said, okay, he can compete. That is how manipulative these people are. They will use any means, and they use the compassion. Women are naturally more nurturing and compassionate and caring than men are. And they use that against women. They use that to force women to give in and allow men to call the shots, and utilizing the idea of suicide and telling them, if you don't let him on your team, he probably will kill himself. He's already planned out the steps on how to do it. And to see out of the 17 of them give in is just another example of how that movement manipulates girls and women into taking a backseat to boys and men. Springfield's Talk 104.1. I'm Nick Reed. Sarah Myers, everyone.
Thank you. I'm going to do the weather first for
Oh, okay.
you.
Yeah, good idea.
The first alert forecast from Ozarks First meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by J&S Automotive. Today we'll see a 70% chance of showers throughout the morning and then cloudy with a high near 70. Tonight, partly cloudy with a low around 58. For your Friday, mostly sunny with a high near 81. And taking a look at Saturday, sunny skies with a high near 86. And I wanted to read a review from my friends over at Foreman Mechanical Heating and Air. Darren wrote, I called on a Saturday afternoon. They had originally put in my AC unit before I had lived there. They called me back within an hour and they said they had a cancellation, so they could be here in a couple of hours. And they showed up within 45 minutes. Not only did the techs do an excellent job, he gave me pointers and showed me a few things. The capacitor was out, so they changed it and they exchanged the thermostat because they had a nice one. It was affordable. I would tell you to call them if you need help with your AC for sure. And I highly recommend, if you are looking for someone to help you with your HVAC needs, read the reviews for Foreman Mechanical Heating and Air. And if you have questions, reach out to Russell and his team. They are incredibly knowledgeable, and I say that about the reviews because you will see just over and over and over again that everybody has a wonderful experience with them. They're upfront, they're honest, and they're just awesome. So if it is time to have them out to your home, schedule that appointment. You can find all of the contact information for Foreman Mechanical Heating and Air under the Sarah's Endorsements tab at ksgf.com.
Last Friday, I once again had the honor of emceeing the Vitae Foundation event. Vitae Foundation, it's a pro-life organization that takes meaningful steps in order to really connect with mothers and fathers in a meaningful way, and showing them the alternative to abortion, and that despite all of the cliches they're told, the option of actually having your child is not the end of your life. It's not scary and so forth. One of the actual, I'll share with you this. I'm relating this to a story here in a moment. But one of the things that they talked about that I found to be very, very interesting is so men have essentially been trained by society when their girlfriend, this usually isn't a husband-wife situation, though sometimes it may be, but usually when the guy gets pregnant, she gets pregnant and comes to him and even says, well, I'm thinking about getting an abortion. The guys are trained to say, well, I'll support whatever it is that you do. We've been trained and told that is the best thing for the woman. And what the Vitae Foundation, in their research, and they talk with women in these situations, found is that the majority of women and girls who have unexpected pregnancies and who share with the guy they're thinking about getting an abortion, that hear that, well, whatever you decide, I will support you, they hate that because they feel as if, which is true, essentially what's happening is the father is saying, this is on you to decide. And this is, as much as the left wants you to believe it's no big decision whatsoever, it's no big deal, it is a huge deal. It's a huge deal to a mother. And unfortunately, many women don't realize it until it's too late, and they've decided to have the abortion, and then you've got the depression and all sorts of problems that follow after that. But that training of men to say, I'll support whatever it is you want, is something that women don't actually, the majority of them, don't like to hear and don't want to hear. And the idea that, it was noted that if they wanted to get an abortion, they would just do it without even talking to the father in the first place, in most circumstances. What would be the point of having that conversation? If you're pregnant, you're like, I do not want this child. Most of those women are just going to go do it. And I found that to be a very fascinating bit of information. And yet another form of propaganda that the left has actually been very successful in. I think even convincing pro-life people or pro-life guys, that's the best thing to tell the woman, that I will support you no matter what you do. One of the other things, of course, the Vitae Foundation of the discussion that was had at the event was the complete contradictions between those who, the contradictory stances that pro-abortion people oftentimes take. And I thought of that because of the following story. An Illinois man facing homicide charges after allegedly slipping abortion pills to his girlfriend without her consent. WMBD TV reported that 31-year-old Emerson Evans of the community of Normal appeared Monday in McLean County Circuit Court. Judge A. McFarland agreed to prosecutors' request to detain Evans pending a trial. He faces 2 counts of intentional homicide of an unborn child, a felony comparable to first-degree murder. This is Illinois. This is solid blue Democrat state. How on earth do you charge someone with homicide when they never actually took the life of a human being? Because we're told, particularly at the period of pregnancy in which you're talking about abortion pills, that it's just a clump of cells. That's not a life. That's not a human being. And it is one of the very stark contradictions of particularly the left, but in our culture and in our country, that we, will charge someone with homicide for slipping a woman an abortion pill, but then on the other hand claim it's not actually a life. Springfield's Talk 104.1, I'm Nick Reed. Senator Susan Collins, who has really been a thorn in the side of Republican voters and Republican elected officials who really do believe in the Republican cause, or even those that do more than half the time. And this is because she's one of those that, much like a Murkowski and a Mitt Romney, have portrayed themselves as virtuous because they will reach across the aisle. And that's the answer. The answer is compromising with Democrats. And that's why it is that they are so strong and get reelected in their own states. And that's if everyone was like Susan Collins and willing to put partisanship aside and instead reach across the aisle and embrace the Democrat ideology and their beliefs and their legislation, every once in a while we'd all be better. So here's a story that I found to be interesting. Senator Susan Collins, Republican Maine, faced repeated heckling from protesters on Tuesday during a ribbon-cutting ceremony marking the completion of a $9.2 million federally funded Route 1 reconstruction project. Collins' remarks on securing federal money for the project were repeatedly drowned out, showing both her challenges on the home front and the broader fight for Senate control. Her Democrat challenger, Graham Plattner, quickly seized on the moment, sharing a close-up video of the heckling on X that has nearly 4,000 likes, and I'm sure it's probably much higher than that at this point. With the Senate hanging by a razor-thin margin, Maine's race has emerged as one of the most closely watched in the country. Democrats see Collins' seat as a potential pathway back to control, while Republicans, led by Trump, are fighting to defend their fragile majority. One protester shouted, "I'm disgusted with the cuts the Republican Party has made to this big, ugly bill. Get out of here." Another one screaming, "Shame, shame, shame." And this, again, was something that gleefully her Democrat opponent posted on social media to use against her. Well, I guess reaching across the aisle is really paying off for you now, isn't it, Susan Collins? Now, this is a demonstration of a couple of things. Democrats only use you when they feel it's to their benefit. The minute that they think, in her mind, she thinks that, I'm a reasonable Republican that Democrats can work with, that Democrats are okay with. I'm the sort of Republican that is a statesman that Democrats are okay with because they're not these maniacal one-party rule authoritarians. They just want reasonable Republicans. Well, where's that now? They have their supporters showing up, heckling you. Now that they think there's a chance to get rid of you, they're going to do everything they can in order to do it, including showing up at an event where you bring all these taxpayer dollars back to the massive amount of Democrats in the state of Maine. And they're turning on you. At the same time, it also shows that the Democrat Party is becoming more to the left. Because when it comes to resources and Republicans to target, Susan Collins never has been one that they've worried about too much because they know when push comes to shove, odds are they can win her over. But as the Democrat Party becomes more and more extreme and demand total and complete compliance with the left, someone like Susan Collins is no longer welcome. The idea of Republicans, even Republicans that will betray their own voters and come over, no, that is not good enough. You have to see and project the narrative that all Republicans and all Trump supporters are evil, dangerous to democracy. And so even a Republican as to the left and accommodating to the Democrats as Susan Collins is now on their target list. All those years thinking that they just really cared and appreciated her as a statesman. And now look what she's facing. Tomorrow it is a Heroes Breakfast. It is an opportunity for veterans to come out. And of course, you can always come out to Scramblers. It's just come out and have yourself breakfast, have yourself lunch at breakfast, breakfast to lunch, you name it, you do it. But every so often, we got this nice little day this morning, 6 to 9. This happens to be one tomorrow. It's a Heroes Breakfast. Veterans get free breakfast. That thanks to the generosity of Scramblers and Delta Roofing and Air Services, Heating, Cooling, Plumbing, Electrical, and the Warriors Journey, an incredible organization. And so all you got to do is come on out. Between 6A and 9A, if you've not done it before, just as we're broadcasting there, I got these little laminated coupon deals. You grab one of those, and then you give that to the whoever's going to be taking care of you, and it'll get all set up from there. So it's pretty easy stuff, not that difficult at all. I don't know if you saw the story. You probably did. And Vanity Fair, I guess they have a new editor, new CEO or whatever, and talking about putting Melania Trump on the cover with the tradition of past first ladies, being on the cover of that or Vogue magazine. And there are a number of people on the left that apparently said that they would just walk out and quit en masse if that happened. What is wrong with you people? I mean, and they claim that Trump supporters are cult-like. They claim that Trump supporters are authoritarian. Melania Trump, by every matrix, is the exact sort of person that would be on the cover of Vanity Fair. And by the way, how many other first ladies were immigrants to this country? These people who claim that Republicans are anti-immigrant, here we have a president of the United States who has a wife that's the first, real, true, authentic immigrant to this country in the modern era. And they want to crap all over her every way from Thursday. Really supportive of immigrants, aren't they, on the left? Speaks 7 languages, elegant, has never said anything harsh about anyone. So, of course, the left hates her. Glenn Beck's coming up next. See you at Scramblers tomorrow. I'm Nick Reed.